a fresh chapter of Turing Dev Talks. This is your host, Alina, and I'm tuning in from Gurgaon, India. Today on the panel, we have a very special guest joining us from Campinas, Brazil. Her name is Tatiana, and she has more than 17 years of experience in quality assurance, out of which 9 years were in the software industry itself. That's awesome, Tatiana. I must say that.
Thanks.
And before we begin with the discussion, I would also like to tell all of you that she has worked with big names like IBM and AB InBev. And at Turing, she's leading the quality assurance team. I'm sure that must be an amazing experience for you. And,
Yeah.
and today she's going to help us understand more about the QA cycle and the importance of testing a product before deployment. And I think that is going to be very interesting for me as well. Thank you so much, Tatiana, for joining us today for this discussion. How are you doing and how has your new year been this far?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for inviting me. I am glad to be here. It's been challenging to lead the QA team, but it's been so cool to know many good professionals here at Turing. We have another leads. We have an automation leads and another person that work in peer with me. And also we have Diego, that is our head of quality, that is guiding us to make sure we are creating the process flow and applying the best practices on the quality assurance to make sure that we are delivering everything good and considering the criticality of the products that we are working on. Since this is we are testing our own product, so it's important to make sure that it's everything working fine for the end customers, for the developers that apply for a new job, or for the companies that have a trust in us to pre-select to hire the developers for their projects.
Right. Absolutely
Yeah.
correct. And as I can see, I think you're having a lot of fun working with Turing, and I'm really happy to see that.
Thanks. It's been nice. Principally here we are on 14 people in the team, and we have Brazilian, Argentina people. We have some people from Ecuador and also Vietnam. So there is a lot of culture different experience that the team has. And I love that. I love to get to know the people and understand a little more about what is living on, outside. So it's amazing for me.
Right. I actually love that thing about Turing as well, because we have a globally distributed team. We get to meet so many new people, and that too from across the world.
Mm-hmm. And every time we meet, we try to understand also the experience that each one has, because considering that we have senior people from different that came from different projects, we try to gather all of the experience and try to verify what could be better for us considering the experience of the team. So we have a chance to not only to teach and guide the team, but also I have been learning from them also. So it's good for me as well. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I think peer-to-peer learning is something that's very critical for every organization. And our learning is by far, I think, the best, because we get to learn from people everywhere in the world, right?
Yeah, and working on IT, we know that we needed to learn every time we are in a new project. So it's good to have a team that has much experience and wants to work together to make it better. So we can each day, each sprint, elaborate what went good, what we need to improve, and do it together to make another level each time in each sprint. So it's very good for us. and for the Turing also.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah.
And now that you're talking about experiences specifically, I would like to, mention this again that you have like 17
Mm.
years of experience in quality assurance, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is a pretty long time. So,
Yeah.
to start off with this discussion, I would like to understand more about what quality
Mm-hmm.
assurance is and what the entire life cycle looks like. Could you like shed some light on
Mm-hmm.
that?
Sure. I started 17 years ago. I started in another industry. I was working on the quality assurance for an pharmaceutical industry. But I will start to explain what quality is, and then I can try to elaborate the relationship between the industries
Definitely. Yeah.
to explain that even if we work in different industry, the concept of quality will be the same, but we will adapt some tools and some practice for the products or the services that we are working on. So usually in the pharmaceutical industry, we use the quality assurance to make sure that everything, every medicine or food or products for self-care are being matching the requirements, the industrial requirements to sell to the people. So we have some procedures, we have some internal auditings, and also auditing from the regulatory companies. Here in Brazil, we have, for example, Anvisa, but we have a global that is in Metro, that is known in several industry because of the requirements that in Metro, the ISO. It's like a standard procedure considered globally. We also have some ISO created for the IT industries, and some companies also apply that. We have, I think the most ISO known is the ISO 9000, because it's related to the, like business administration, it's more related to this. So many industries apply that first and then apply for some specific procedures, specific regulatory rules related to each one of the industry. Talking about the IT, thinking that we are developing a software, quality is aimed to help the team understanding if we are matching the business requirements. And for that, we need to work together with the product owner. Is the first area that work with the quality assurance team. They needed to provide to us some details regarding what the end user needs. So they have some documentation. Each project has a specific name, but in general, we have like a blueprint where we have the details about what the user needs, what is the behavior expected in the product or system, if is there any differentiation on type of users. For example, if we have, in this case in Turing, we have a site, but this same site is used by internal people to manage the process. And also we have an access for the developers that need to get access and apply for some opportunities. And we also have another session for the companies that try to hire the developers through the Turing website. So everything that we have in the system needed to be documented. So not only the quality assurance, but the developers and the UI, everyone that will work on the enhancements or new features will have the information as reference to do their job. So the developer will look in a view to understand in technical perspective what he or she needed to know to create a feature or to enhance an existing one. In the quality assurance side, we see this same document, but in a perspective to understand better what is the intention of this new development, what we are delivering for the end customer, and how we can plan a test case to make sure that everything that the product owner gathered from the end customer or noted that the end customer would need is well defined, like pre-requirements and behaviors, and if is there any background rule, like sometimes we have some accountability, some ranking rule, everything needed to be covered at this document. And we use this as a reference to see when we have the code deployed in an environment stable for testing, we can see, and also we can evaluate if we have some issues or if this is matching the requirements. So in short words, quality is verify if we are matching the requirements needed to deliver a product or a service to the end customer as it was described by our product owner. Okay.
Wow, that's
I'm not
quite.
sure if it's being clear. If it's not, you can ask me again and I can try to elaborate in another way. Okay.
No, not at all. I think that was quite an elaborate and a very decent explanation of the entire process. Honestly, I understood a lot. I hope our audience did.
Great.
But I'm curious to know more about the whole testing before deployment process, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think we need such an elaborate process before a product is signed off for the market?
Sure. We need to elaborate that because considering that we have many products running. I'm talking about Turing, but we can consider that for any kind of development, okay? But considering that we have a lot of products being used in production, production is the place where the end customer use the environment. We need to make sure that we are covering all requirements needed to have these working fine, to deliver a good experience to the end customer. So for that, we start by looking on the requirements in the documentation that the product owner sent to us. And then as soon as these information became a priority for the quality assurance on each sprint, we needed to take a look, verify the understanding of the scope. We needed to make sure if we have everything described in terms of not only the business rules, but some technical information needed to set up the environment, because we have a separated environment to test. We need to make sure that if it's everything ready to start testing. So we need to communicate not only with the product owners, but also with the developers, tech leads, the stakeholders, to make sure first if the code is available for testing, if the unit test already started, and if it is done, if it is working fine. This first test is usually it's done by the developers side, because they start coding in a separated, in a restricted environment to avoid instability in our test. And then after they create this code, they move to an environment where we are planning to test. So before moving this code, a good practice is, the first good practice, run some unitary tests run some code coverage to make sure that the structure, the requirements that the developer considered, it's okay for testing. And why it's important? Because if an activity is done, but it's not validated by the same person or by a peer, for example, we can start seeing losing some time on the testing because some short issues could be fixed easier if it's identified earlier. After moving this code for the test environment, while the developers are doing their job, we are getting the information, understanding the requirements, clarifying them with the POs. And sometimes we need to clarify also with the tech leads to make sure we are setting up the environment. And we start to do the test plan. The test plan is a design. We are in this phase describing in a tool. Here at Turing, we use the Qmetry to do the test management, to describe what we are planning to validate in this product or feature, which type of tests we are planning to do. For example, if we are elaborating some functional tests or non-functional, if it's feasible to automate some tests or create a script to prepare the data in an automated way, if it's feasible to do some performance or loading tests. So we start understanding how can we test and what we need to do this validation to cover the requirements, principally the most critical ones. Sometimes we don't have enough time to cover everything or to do exhaustive or exploratory tests, for example, because each sprint has many features, many products to test. So it's important to create, to design a good test plan, create the test cases properly, the alternative scenarios, some negative scenarios to make sure that it's everything working fine. And then we start the execution. So we just have our own credentials, like if we would, how can I say, for example, at Turing, if we have a new feature for a developer and I need to test that, I will have some credentials as a developer to go through the flow that the developer would go in a real world, let's say that. And we will pass through each one of those steps to make sure that everything that the product owner described, it's working fine. And this will do in the proper environment, okay, not in production. And if we see that something is working, it's not working fine, we need to raise this issue. So we create a bug, and in this bug, we describe what we planned to test, what is the step-by-step, the expected result, what we expected in overall, and what we got. We'll have some GIFs, for example, as evidence, and also some screenshots. We share the credentials, we share everything that the developer needs to investigate, reproduce the same issue, and understand the root cause. Understanding the root cause, they can fix this issue, it deliver back to the quality assurance team so we can retest and make sure that this type of issue is not going to the real world where the end user will use this feature or product or service. Another thing that we used to do is suggesting some improvements. not only in the product, but also in the process. Because as we work with a team that has different professionals, developers, and also UI, and also data team, DevOps team. We need to make sure that we are doing our best, and we need to make sure that we have the best process to avoid bottlenecks across the flow that we use to work on. So basically is it, we plan, we elaborate some task cases considering the requirements. After that, we execute, verify if have issues, we have if these issues are blockers or no. We validate the impact of these. We suggest some improvements in the product and also the process. And after that, we run the smoke test. Smoke test is a shorter one, just to make sure that is everything working fine before going to production. And we also plan the regression. Regression is a set of test cases that we select from each feature or each product that we worked and homologated. Sometimes we run these manually, and if possible, we automatize, because for in the next sprints, if we have new enhancements or new features that can be impacted by the older one, we can identify if we have any issue by running the regression. It's like a standard test that we run every sprint to make sure that we all functionalities are working fine and not impacted by the new code deployed in the environment.
Right, right. That is quite an explanation. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Welcome.
And I noticed one thing in particular, that this work, that the work of quality assurance is quite a cross-functional work. So, a
Yeah.
lot of teams are involved, a lot of work needs to
Mm-hmm.
be
Mm-hmm.
involved with them. A lot of work needs to be done with a lot of teams. So
Mm-hmm.
how does it work? Does it get confusing at times, or how do you all collaborate?
Yeah, the communication is very important, because sometimes we need to make sure that everyone has the same understanding on the business in the process. So the QA is not only the person that execute a script to verify if it's working or not. We use some metrics, for example, to improve the process, but we cannot improve the process by themselves, or we cannot improve only our own process. We need to have an overall view about everything that is working and everyone that can be impacted, to enhance the scenario in overall perspective. So for that, we needed to have a good communication with the product owners to verify the requirements, with the developers to understand the approach of the developers to create the feature. Because sometimes we have, how can I say, we have a reference, a document as a reference, but each person can use a different way to develop and then bring it as a product or feature. So considering that we can have variations during the process, and we can have different understandings, it's a good practice to talk, to ask if we have any doubts, to avoid understanding and passing a scenario that is not well done. Not because it was not well consulted, but can be missing an important detail that we didn't get yet. So that's why it's challenging, because it's not like a standard task. We need to, for each product, understand, talk, align. Sometimes we need to review some rules and talk to several stakeholders to make sure that we are covering everything, to make sure that understanding is okay, if the scheduling is okay. Sometimes we got some challenging talks, but it's part of the process because we are trying to understand and elaborate how to do this in a right way and how to improve and enhance.
Absolutely, absolutely. Basically, the
Yeah.
interpretation of one particular doc or even a reference document could be very different from person to person, and especially
Yeah.
when you're working in a globally distributed team and people have different cultures, words mean different things for different people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always very
Mm-hmm.
important to come on the same page before starting a work,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, sometimes a person can assume a requirement or can understand a different way, principally because we have different cultures, different ways of work. And it happen a lot when the product is new, when the people don't know much each other, and working home office sometimes is more challenging because when we are in the office, we can sometimes take a coffee and talk to the person and start to understanding better how the person think and understand what is the past experience of this person. And now that we are all remote, we needed to be creative to have this chance to know better the people, to know how they think, to know how they would approach to solve some issue. Not all day we have chance to do that because we have a lot of things going on and the product is our priority. But knowing people, it's a plus in the project because knowing how to approach, knowing how to talk, to explain, or to ask the right thing for the person could be the way to solve faster and better the challenges that we have. Yeah.
Right. I think that's very true. And
Mm-hmm.
while you were talking about the tests and while you're talking about testing before deployment, you mentioned a
Mm-hmm.
term, smoke testing, right? And
Yeah.
when we talk about quality assurance, we often come across terms like smoke tests or exploratory tests. Could you
Mm-hmm.
like tell us more about that? What are these tests and why do we use them?
Sure. The smoke test we use to plan after doing all validation in the testing environment. Sometimes we have, here at Turing, we have the staging and also UAT. Staging is the first environment that we validate the features, the products. After we have these tested and the bugs fixed, we move to UAT. UAT is an environment most close to the production. That is the environment we use in the real world. So we use to test that in UAT, some critical scenarios with the credentials, some restricted credentials to make sure that some roles are being covered, some behaviors are working fine. It's for sensitive data, okay? And after that, we go, before going to production, we do the smoke test. The smoke test is shorter than the last phases, but in this smoke test, we need to make sure that the functionality is working fine. If we don't have any crashing after moving the code to production, if we didn't impact anything that was working fine before the deploy. So the main idea is evaluate to check if it's everything fine for the end customer before delivering that for them. And about the exploratory testing. Exploratory testing is a good approach to learn more about the system. In the exploratory test, we don't have much structured script like we have in the test plan that we use for new features in the sprints or new products. We just need to go there in that component or system and try to elaborate if I was this user, what I could do here, and try to do different scenarios there, clicking different buttons, filling in different ways, to verify how it works, to verify if we do something different, the behavior will be the same, or if it will be blocking us as user, if it would need to block or not. So you can discover different things doing the exploratory. Sometimes it's challenging to do the exploratory testing because we have some slots to do the evaluation. So we try to cover the high priority ones, the more criticals. And if we have chance, we do some exploratories. And in another situations, when we just started to work on a new product, for example, in my case, I am at Turing for about 2 months. So the first things I did was I asked for the team some credentials. I went there and I tried to understand. I had some KTs that was useful for me to understand the role scope, but it's good to go there and try to do by yourself because you start to link what you learn from the team and also how it works in the system. And don't have a structured script, like go and elaborate and try and feel how it works. This is the exploratory.
Right. I think the word exploratory is quite self-explanatory
Yeah.
because it pretty much explains itself that you just need to explore what all is going to happen, in terms of the end user. If suppose an end user does this, what was going to happen? If he does that,
Yeah.
what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the smoke test usually in some projects we run the smoke test in different time that the time is used for the end customer. Sometimes, depending on the product that you test, you cannot just turn off the system. It needed to be running 24 hours. And the smoke testing in some products, for example, I worked in a product from the entertainment industry some years ago. And we use it to run the smoke at after midnight, because it's a time that the user use not don't use to access the environment. So it would be more stable for us and not impacting the system behavior. And we go there, we test, the system will be down for some hours, 2-3 hours, just to validate. And if everything is okay, we bring this up. Nowadays, there are another ways to do that because we have the continuous integration, continuous delivery. So if the company can apply this approach of continuous delivery, we can do the smoke test in a separated environment. And then as soon as we have this validated, we move, but we also have another environment running and not impacting the customer. And then we change, we shift to avoid these some uncomfortable situation with the end user if we have to do the smoke test or any new deploy.
Right. That pretty much explains what exactly smoke tests and exploratory tests are. And
Mhm.
I actually absolutely understood what these are. I hope our audience
I'm happy
with
for
that
that.
too.
Good.
So I came across a research by Forrester that said that only about 29% of mobile developers use exploratory testing. Why do you think
Mhm.
that's the case?
Talking about the exploratory testing, in my point of view, depending on the process flow that we have and the timing that we have to plan, execute, and validate the bugs, fix it, doing exploratory testing is challenging because we need more time to go through the flow without a structured script and try to elaborate several scenarios for that. Usually, the teams use the exploratory testing in the beginning to understand more about the product. Also, if have a chance during the sprint, we do some exploratory to cover more scenarios. But we prefer to run the test scripted because there we can make sure that we are covering the requirements. First, we cover the most critical requirements. After that, we run some, for example, performance or load or non-functional validations. And then if we have a chance, we add some exploratory scenarios to verify if it's anything missing. But I think the major reason is the scope, considering that we have much projects running, it's difficult to have a slot just for the exploratory testing. So we need to decide what is most important for each type of products that is being tested. Mm-hmm.
Right, right. So how many times do you think at Turing we use exploratory tests? Like, do we use it
Yeah.
for all products, or
Mm-hmm.
do we have to choose when it comes to
Depending,
priority?
yeah, I have been seeing this on the quality assurance team that usually we apply the exploratory testing in the beginning when we have a new feature or a new product because we need to have an overall view about how it works. After we have this knowledge, we start scripting some specific scenarios to do the validation, specific test cases. And so we have two situations when we just started to understand a feature or a system. And after that, after running the principal test cases that we scripted, we can use sometime if we have a slot for that to run some exploratories to make sure that if we miss it to cover anything in the exploratory, we can catch a
Right,
different type of issue. Yeah.
right, right. Interesting. I think it is
Mm-hmm.
also important to take into consideration the tools that we use during the
Yeah.
entire, QA cycle. So, what are some of the go-to tools that you use or your team uses very frequently? Which ones are you fond of?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually in the task team, we need to think which type of tools we would need to manage our activities. So starting by managing the task plan, the bugs, and the process, we need to have a tool for this. In Turing, we have Jira. So in Jira, we do the product or project management. It's not only used for by the task team, but for all the engineerings. So the PO has access to put the details about the history or the use case. We have the tech leads to create the main tasks. We have the access for the developers to create the subtasks to elaborate the products that they are developing. And also the testers has access to understand what is in the backlog, what was prioritized, relates to the test case that we planned, and also link to the issues or enhancements. After that, we also have the Qmetry, that is an application that we connect to Jira. And there we have a structure to create the task case template, like a more structured for specific for testing. So we have some sessions to, we have some sessions to create the test plan, test cases, to create a test cycle for each sprint that we are working on, and also to relate the requirements, because we need to make sure that we are covering all requirements. So we link to the test case, and also linking to each one of those issues that we raised. So for task management, I can share Jira and the Qmetry. We have a lot in the industry. For example, we have ALM from HP that I already use it. We have, let me think if I can remember. We have a Rational from IBM that it's used by many companies. I have a note here for the automation. We are using the Cypress to create this script for automation, but we also have others. For example, Appium, the Tricentis Tosca. We have Selenium that it's used for several industry for the automation. We have SoapUI to do some API validations. It is used also to create data. We have the UFT. This is from HP also for the GUI functionality, backend service testing. We have Catalan, but to understand what is better, it's needed to have the team, principally the leads and the senior members, to understand which kind of tool could be a fit for the products that we are developing. That's not a rule. Depending on the situation, depending on the budget that the company has in the moment to invest in a tool. Some of them are free, some of them are not. Depends on the type of development. For example, if it's Java-based, if it's C#, depending on the language of programming, if it's Python, we can apply different tools to do this, for not only for automation, but for the management and for the performance tests or load tests, depending on what you want to do with the product. And then elaborating, understanding what is the product, how it would be developed, then we can elaborate a process and we can think, wow, this tool can be good for us at this moment, or this tool we can start by this and then enhance. So it's depend on the situation, but we have a lot of tools available for not for only for automation, but for management and for testing.
Right, right. So do you think that that the usage of these tools mostly depends on, mostly varies from company to company, or does it vary from person to person?
It's a good question because sometimes some persons are already more familiar with some tools. Sometimes, depending on the tool, some tools are structured as user friendly, so you don't need to go and try to understand it with much details. It's clear in the interface. Some tools are more complex to understand, so it's most used by people that have more technical background. For example, sometimes we have in the team people that already worked on development or started by the automation, so they are more familiar with coding, and for them would not be a challenging to take a tool like this, not too much user friendly. But sometimes we have on the quality assurance people that came from business or started by functional tests and didn't have a chance to experience a lot about coding, some background knowledge in the development life cycle. So we need to consider that to select the right tool for the team. And with that, we can have some persons also guiding the team to understand not only how to use this tool, but also what would be the best practice for us as a team, how to create a standard to make sure that everything that we are working on has the same standardization to do the scripting, for example, or to create the test types and expected result. So independent on the level of majority, if you have a process flow and if you have a good practice established and understood by the team, it would be easier to use any tool selected. But depending on the if the people is not too much familiar with some kind of tools that is not user friendly, would be a good approach to select some tools more easier to go and start recording, start scripting, for the team get more familiarity with this, and then if needed, turning for more complex tools, depending on the necessity also of the project.
Right, right. Going by the way you're speaking of these tools, it definitely seems as if the usage of these tools in the entire QA cycle
Yeah.
plays a very crucial role, right?
Yeah, because it can impact it, it can block the team or not. If it's easier to understand anyone, if I have 1 month at Turing or if I have 3 years at Turing, I can go there and understand what is there. But if it's difficult or challenging tool, the people get blocked. Sometimes the tool don't have much guidance or maybe don't have enough time to go and understand how it works to just start the activity that you needed to start. So it's a good approach to understand what fits better to make their lives, the team lives easier. Yeah.
Right, right. Another question that comes to my mind here is that since you've been in this industry for a pretty long time, 17
Mhm.
years, I'm sure that you must have encountered, errors in products even after going through the entire QA process very thoroughly, right? In that respect, what kind of conversation do you have with developers, especially, when you encounter escaped defects? What do they have to say? What do you
Okay.
say?
Yeah. When I started on IT, I worked in projects that was waterfall. In this type of project, everything that comes to test already passed through the phase of defining the scope, elaborating and developing the product. So when we work on our waterfall, we have a restricted slot to plan and execute, and we don't have too much chance to talk directly with the developers. We raise a bug, and sometimes we even don't know who is coding for us, because it's like a fabric, it's like a separated industry. So usually in this case, when we have some issues to fix, we just raise, put in the system, and then a person in anywhere that I don't know, go there, understand, verify if it's a real issue or not. If it's not, it come back to us. If it's an issue, they fix and then deliver back to us. When we talk on agile, it's a kind of different because people are working together. So they are delivering some slots of developing some components to us, and we start testing what is already available. And if we have issues, we bring back. If not, it goes to the next level. If we have escaped issues, we need to understand the root cause, because if we just fix this issue, you don't elaborate better why this passed through and we didn't get it. It will be happen again. It in the most critical of this is that sometimes it can happen another way in a major level or most critical level. So it's important to understand why we didn't get this issue, what is the root cause, what we can do not only to fix, but also what we can do to avoid this type of issue. And doing this type of questionings, not only on QA, but with the developers and also the product owners, we can avoid this happening again, and we can enhance our process and get a better product in the next sprints that we are planning to work on.
Right, right. On a side note here, do you think it's great for developers and the QA team, leads not to interact with each other in such situations? Because then you might encounter situations where, both of you guys are probably not on the same terms.
Sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes we have many challenges during the developing life cycle. But I think the best approach is to have all teams together, because communicating, we have the same, we are on the same page, we have the same expectations. If we face a situation that the tester think that the behavior could be one, according to the requirements, and the dev thinks that it's not feasible, or things that understood in a different way, we needed to escalate that. We needed to have the managers, we need to have the product owners to think together and elaborate on unique understanding on that. So it's important to have everyone together, not only for this facility to talk, understand, align, and refine anything that we need, but also because of the timing, because timing is short for us as agile team. So as soon as we understand, as soon as we refine, better for us, because we have more time to think how can we do to improve, how can we do to fix, and also what can we do to start another task from the backlog in a different approach, in a different way, to avoid the same issues happening again.
Right, right, right. I agree on that. Better communication would definitely help in fastening the
Yeah.
process, and
Mm-hmm.
it'll help you get to the point of the problem, and it would get solved easier and faster.
Yeah, it's important because when we start working on IT, we focus too much in technical skills, and it is important because we need that to make sure that we are doing in the right way. But soft skill is also important. We needed to know how to treat people with respect. We needed to know how to talk to people, making sure that they are understanding what we are planning to do, or understanding what we think about I think. And also we needed to make sure that we also are listening what the people are talking, and make sure that we are understanding the expectations in the process. And another point regarding the soft skills that I think this is important. Now I am working as a lead, so it's part of my role to communicate and to make sure that that everything is clear for the team. But I understood through my career, through my years of experience, that I don't need to be a manager or a leader to get ownership. I don't need to be a leader to share information to the team, to go there and ask if I have any questions. So it's important, and it makes you enhance in your career when you not only invest in your technical skills, but understand that you need to be the ambassador, the advocate of the quality assurance, making sure that not only you, but the team has the same understanding in the process and best practice. And the team, when I say it, I say like all the team, developers, managers, product owners, UI team, DevOps team, everyone involved need to have the same understanding, and they need to understand also that quality is part of all activities, beginning on the designing, on the product definition, the business rules after developing. Each one has this part of ownership in the quality assurance and in the quality of what is being delivered, not only us as QA engineers.
Right. Yeah. Another question that comes to my mind here is that have you faced any issues or challenges in collaboration, especially because you are a woman in a leadership role?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's challenging because not only IT, but usually
Yeah.
in this field, usually people are, it's a man field. We don't have too much women. We don't have too much Black women. And not only this, nowadays we have the companies working to have more people, more women, more Black people, more person with disability or different cultures. But when I started 17 years ago, we didn't have that. And when we don't have much people as a reference, we start to think that it's not for us. So the first challenge I had was to change this understanding and start applying for the opportunities, because I didn't think that I had a chance to start on it. I didn't have too much knowledge or reference people near me on my family or friends or school that has the same curiosity on the same subject to discuss about, to elaborate, to understand how it works, to understand of the possibilities. Now we have more, so it's good. But it is still challenging because unfortunately we have much people that don't look to a woman as a leader, as a person that needs to be respected like a man in the same position. So in this situation, we needed to look back in all of the activities challenges that I already passed through and I was able to solve, to reinforce that I'm here, I have experience, I have knowledge, I passed through several situations, and I had not only the information necessary, the information needed, but the behavior needed to go through and solve. So we need to be confident. We need talk respectfully, even if the person is not respectful with us, to make sure for those people that don't respect or don't see us as a leadership role, that we have this knowledge, we have the skills needed, we have the background, and the people, it's not a matter of allowing us to do. If we have experience, we just need to be confident, go there and just work and do your best to help the team, to support the team, to enhance the process. And the data will show for those people that don't believe that we are good on what we are doing.
Right. I think that's very true. We've come a long
Yeah.
way since ever since women started working in all the fields, and I think today we're seeing the change happen. We're seeing women in leadership roles. We're seeing women taking positions in the software industry. They're changing the environment. They're changing the work environment, and that is all for the better, right?
Yeah.
And especially here, I would like to mention that Turing, for that matter, has helped bridge this gap a lot. I've seen a lot of women in leadership positions. I've seen women in good positions here at Turing, and I think that's incredible.
Yeah, it's very good. And each time that we see another woman, for example, here, we are two women working in a senior level in sharing information with the team. So it's very good to have. And not only for us, but seeing that the system is enhancing and allowing people to do their best, not considering the gender or um, the culture, but only the strengths that the people has to work on the product. Yeah.
Of course, I think the skills are what matter in the end. And if you are skilled enough, if you have that experience, if you are skilled enough, I think it shouldn't matter what gender you belong to or what race you
Yeah.
belong to. In the end, it all depends on your skill set. Here, I'd like to call upon all senior developers with at least 3+ years of experience. If you think you have the skill set to crack the Turing test, please head on to turing.com/jobs and apply now. Now, Tatiana, thank you so much. It was a very, very interesting
Thanks.
discussion.
It was
And
awesome. Thanks.
yes, I honestly had a lot of fun. But before I let you go, could you share one final piece of advice with all our QA engineers out there? How can they increase the quality of a product and ensure customer satisfaction with it?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. The first thing, in my point of view, is that we need always to invest in ourselves. When I started to invest in my knowledge, learning another language, knowing another tools, enhancing the technical and soft skills, I had more opportunities to grow up as a professional. This is the first point. After that, we needed to be able to work as a team, to collaborate, to be collaborative, to support the team, to be servant. Not only the leaders, but all team members need to communicate, share information, ask, don't be shy. If you have a thing that is not clear, you need to ask. And also, if you pass it through a situation and you have a different way to solve that, you need to share your suggestions as well. Because if we don't know what the team is thinking about a challenging situation, we cannot consider that to make the process better. After that, it's knowing the good practice, knowing the techniques, the tools, being an advocate, talking about the quality assurance, being an ambassador and advocate of quality to make sure that everyone understand what is our role, what is our responsibility here, but also explaining that it's not only quality assurance engineers that are the people responsible for the quality of the product or service. We need to be advocate to make sure that everyone has this understanding that the quality is responsibility of everyone. And we need to use some tools to do the continuous improvement, to collect data, investigate this data, and talk to the stakeholders to have this consolidated view shared to everyone that needed to know the information, to consider what we can do as a project to do it better, to do it faster, to do it enhancing on each phase of the project.
Right, right. Thank you so much for that advice. I am
Thanks.
sure all your engineers will be super happy to take back that advice from you. And I honestly believe it was a very helpful session, and I learned a lot talking to you about quality assurance, and I'm going to take back a lot from this session. Thank you so much
I'm glad
again.
to help.
Thanks again for being here with us. To everybody out there, if you have any questions and you would like to ask us, please feel free to drop us an email at support@turing.com. Let us know in the comments below what you would like to learn in the next video and who you would like to see on the panel in the next video. Give us a big fat thumbs up if you like this video, and do not forget to subscribe to Turing.com. We will be back with many more such interesting, informative videos very soon. Till then, take care, stay safe, stay home, and click on the link in the description below to apply to Turing. Happy working, and thank you.